Hey guys, and welcome to another episode. Continuing work on the 100 Series Land Cruiser. I'm actually nearing the end of the mechanical restoration of the Land Cruiser, I think, or at least what I'm going to call phase one. But one of the last things I want to do that I've been holding off on doing just because I need to take it to an alignment shop. Afterwards, I'm going to replace the upper control arms with new, these are actually OEM control arms, with new OEM ball joints, and then also I'm going to be replacing the outer tie rod ends. So my truck has been having, like, it's weird because it doesn't do it over large bumps. It's always only like when you're on like a washboard section, it kind of gets like a rattle or clunk in the front end, and it sounds like it's coming from up high. And till recently I hadn't had a chance to really troubleshoot it, but when I was doing the spark plugs and I had that intake plenum off, I was able to get in there with my pry bar and pry on the bushings on the old control arms, and there's definitely a lot of play in there. So I suspect that is my cause. Definitely looks like the original. I checked the lower control arms and those bushings actually seem pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead and replace these. Again, this is not a cheap part, either OEM or aftermarket. Since my truck's only lifted about 1.5 inches, a lot of the OEM ones are made for lifted trucks like 2 inches plus. So I'm gonna just install the OEM ones. It's actually, I think, the cheapest alternative to, other than taking out your existing control arm and pressing in new bushings. But in this case, with how much trouble I had doing the rear upper trailing arm bushings and then having the two bushings here, not like a lot of room to be able to work in there, I just decided to buy the OEM ones, and then also you're getting the new ball joint as well. So with that, let's get to it. Should be pretty simple. All right, so the first thing I did was go ahead and put match marks on both of the top, mounting brackets or alignment adjusters. Can't really see that one. I also went ahead and took off this splash guard over here. I'm gonna try to work around this one if I can, just because it has way more pop rivets. But if I have to, I can take it off. Next thing I'm gonna do is just remove the 12mm bolt on the ABS sensor. I might remove this. I'll probably just do the top one. I guess kind of the risk if you don't remove these is if this falls back at all, you're gonna be pulling on the brake line. But I'll give it a go with just that top one. Just try and be careful. And yeah, pretty straightforward. All right, so I just supported the hub down here, so when I undo the ball joint, it doesn't fall down. But first I'm gonna break free the bolts on the actual control arm. And they're 20 and 22. If I'm being honest, both these bolts were not on very tight, so I wonder if that alone was the source of my clunking. Could have been whenever they did alignment on it last, there was kind of a lazy tech and didn't torque it down to spec. All right, and these will slide out towards the center. All right, and then this is a 19 if I remember correctly. Obviously you have to pull the cotter pin out of that, and then just be careful for this one, because obviously once this is loose, it is gonna be free to move around. That's the wrong way, but that will be enough to hold it. So I can get this off. And before you remove this all the way, you want to get the ball joint out, which I'm going to get a hammer to do. ball joint is spinning, so you could use an impact on this. I'm replacing the ball joint, so I think I'm just gonna put a set of nail nose pliers on here. So if the shaft of it starts spinning like that, you can you have to use like an impact. But since I'm not reusing mine, I don't really care if I damage it. So I'll just put these on there. All right, here's the old one out. And the moment of truth. I mean, they're not terrible. If I'm being honest, they're actually really not that bad. So I don't know if this will show up on camera, but there is a crack in there, so that makes me feel a little bit better about doing this. At first, when I looked at them, I didn't think they actually really looked that bad, but there's a crack there, and then I've kind of showed this method of testing them before, but I was just putting a screwdriver in the bushing, and then you can see how that crack is flexing. Comparing that to a new one, it's not moving nearly as much. One thing I'll say is it's a ball joint, and it actually feels pretty good, so that was probably replaced at some point. And now it looks like this one's gonna be the right hand one. That's the part number, it's the 301 versus the 10 one. All right, so I hate to say it, but the installation is gonna be the reverse of removal. This ball joint's a little bit more stout than that other one, but the other one wasn't bad. I wish I had known it didn't come with Newcastle nuts. I would have ordered some, but I guess next time. All right, so the ball joint nut here gets torqued to 110 Newton meters. These get torqued to 98 Newton meters, but if you look in the service manual, it says after stabilizing suspension, which means at ride height. So I'm gonna put my floor jack under the lower control arm, jack it up, and I know what my distance from my hub to my fender is because I've been obsessively trying to dial in my ride height. So I'm gonna match that to my normal ride height, and then I'll torque these to 98 Newton meters. I'm gonna torque this here to 110 Newton meters. Which I'm sure is not super accurate with this U-joint on here, but it's the only way to get a socket on here. All right, so now I'm gonna jack the lower control arm up. I guess you probably want to be pretty careful with this because there's gonna be a loaded gun essentially. And then I'm gonna torque these to 98 Newton meters. But the risk with torquing this not at ride height is it sets the preload on these bushings, and then the bushings can wear out sooner. These haven't really wanted to move on me, but technically you probably should counterhold the other side of it so you don't screw up that alignment mark. then the last step is just put this back on, and it's really that easy. All right, so now on to replacing the tie rod end. You can see why I'm replacing it. This boot is completely torn on this one. So I went ahead and made a paint marker on the inner tie rod just so I can try and get it close to where it is currently. It looks like this new tie rod I got is the exact same length. Sometimes with the aftermarket ones, it'll be slightly different. But this Moog one, I'm not sure if this is an OEM Toyota one that's on here or not, but this is a Moog end link and it looks to be exactly the same length. So I'm gonna match it up and put it at the same spot when I put it back together. This is a 30 millimeter bolt. I don't have a socket or a wrench that big, so I'm gonna use a series of adjustable wrenches to hopefully get this undone, and then we'll tackle the ball joint after. So guys, that's a wrap on this episode. This is actually the next night I'm having to refilm my outro since I had an intruder cricket in my garage that was absolutely overbearing in the video. It was the loudest cricket I've ever heard. But anyways, so unfortunately I wasn't able to get the outer tie rods changed. I think just not having the right size wrench, I just wasn't able to get enough leverage on it. So I think I might just ask the alignment shop to take a stab at it. If not, I'll have to buy new inner tie rods. I pretty much always just change inners and outers at the same time, so I probably should have done that, hindsight being 2020. But I guess it is what it is. I'll get them eventually, whether I have the shop do it or I just go ahead and elect to replace the inner tie rods as well, which is very therapeutic because then you can just cut them off and you don't have to worry about getting them off at all. So overall, pretty easy job. I also think that the source of my clunk wasn't actually the fact that the bushings weren't out. They were just starting to crack, so it wasn't a complete waste of money to go ahead and replace these. They definitely would have been needed to be done relatively quickly. But I think the source of the clunk was the fact that I think the last time this truck had alignment, there was someone that was even weaker than me working on it, and they just did not tighten down those upper control arm bolts enough. They're on both sides, they're pretty loose. So when I can get them apart super easy, yeah, that's probably not 98 Newton meters. But yeah, like I said at the beginning, I think the end of the phase one mechanical restoration stuff is winding down on the Land Cruiser. Really, there's not much more that I want to do with it right now. There's a few kind of odds and ends that I'll address going forward. I do have a power steering leak, which I thought was my axle seal leaking again, but then luckily I put a paper towel on it and it turned out to be red. So I think the banjo bolt on the top of the steering rack is leaking. Next time I change the oil and the oil filter's out, I'll replace the crush washers on that. And then I think I have an exhaust leak too somewhere. I need to figure that out at some point because sometimes I can hear ticking when I'm accelerating with the windows down or whatever. So eventually I'll take care of that too. But then kind of going forward, I'm gonna be working on kind of an exterior restoration. I'm not really trying to make this be a show truck or anything. I just really want to get a coat of ceramic on it just to protect the paint from UV going forward, and then touch up some of the blemishes around so they don't rust. And then after that, it will be kind of working on some of the overland stuff I want to do with it, as far as building some drawer sliders in the rear and just getting all the gear assembled that I want to be able to do that sort of stuff. So yeah, there's definitely gonna be more content coming with it. I just don't think it's going to be as mechanical as it has been. But I hope you guys keep watching. And as always, please like and subscribe. Help out the channel. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.